What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Today when I talk to you about NIO, I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause some volatility in the stock price, and go over everything else that you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So starting off with data points, we do have some big ones coming out Sunday evening, so tonight and also Monday. So starting off with today, we do have the trade of balance, and then tomorrow we have GDP, industrial production, retail sales, unemployment, new loans, M2, so a lot of big data, and potentially, depending on how this data does go, you could start seeing stimulus talks, because that's something that's been kind of stuck in limbo. I know they did commit that for 2025. Nothing's really happened all that much, but if we do have some negative data starting to form, you could see some kind of chatter about stimulus. So a lot of that could really push Chinese stocks higher. Aside from that, these are all the companies unveiling their earnings. I don't really see, other than Netflix, any companies really impacting the market dramatically. And the reason why I bring up, of course, Netflix is because that will control algorithmic trading and could potentially impact NIO. Aside from that, though, nothing specific to NIO for this upcoming week, aside from the weekly registration numbers. There hasn't really been all that much in official news from NIO, no SEC filings or anything along those lines. Going into this upcoming week, 12.34% of the free float is being shorted. Works out to be 190.48 million shares overall being shorted. Cost to borrow average has dropped a little bit over the last 2 weeks, so sitting at 7.54. But it's been very interesting to kind of analyze what short's been doing, because it seems as though they knew that this run and rally was going to happen about 1 or 2 days before. So there was that massive return, about 17 million shares, laying the foundation for this very nice run. And even generally tomorrow, so Monday, is a huge day for NIO on a technical standpoint. So normally shorts do get very active during those kind of breakout periods, so potentially you might see a lot of activity this week, or they might just be admitting defeat and start to return. But I do feel the latter is going to happen, and that most likely they are going to try to pounce at strategic points. And what I mean by that is, jumping forward to the actual technicals, every single time NIO does get to this type of setup where it does get above a key moving average, so obviously NIO did successfully close 2 consecutive days above that 50-day moving average, and that is sitting at 371. So normally that would insinuate that NIO is ready to really move higher. So it's kind of been bouncing off of that 100-day moving average now, so that is at 395, closed exactly on that. But every single time NIO has really shown that it wants to break out, shorts double down. Happened at the beginning and end of December, beginning and end of January. So I think come tomorrow, that will be a kind of a key point to really watch for. Stochastic RSI, because of the recent price action, is considered relatively overbought, but then again, 90% of the stocks out there are overbought. So just watch for that 50-day moving average to be that key support. So that's sitting again at 371. Aside from that, 442 is going to be that 200-day moving average. So assuming it is able to hold that 50-day moving average, then you should see a very nice push higher to that 200. You're just going to have a lot of tests, and basically the tests are right over here. So with it at 390, it is trading between this pivot and this S1. So I'm looking at the 1 week chart on a side note. So 369 is going to be that strong support as well. So that's been tested numerous times. That's going to be kind of the line in the sand. And if everything goes according to plan, if it closes above that 50-day moving average, I do tend to agree with a lot of the comments in a lot of my videos that you will be seeing $5. And that's actually what I did also post on my Patreon, where I feel realistically is kind of where NIO's heading to. So 573 is going to be that next strong target / resistance. Again, looking at the 1 week chart. So you're going to have a lot of activity from shorts trying to suppress NIO at all costs, as what we've seen happen over the last several quarters. But if NIO does really continue this good run, maybe gets 1 or 2 new analyst ratings that are relatively optimistic, then you could see a very nice breakout. Aside from that though, with it closing at 390, going over to the options, that does mean that the $4 and above strike prices expired worthless. That's kind of the downside of options, but you do have 19,000 at that 350. Looking at the dark pool, you did see some transactions after hours on Friday, but nothing significant, so market makers did not cover that. So meaning come Monday, you should see a very nice push higher, as that 1.9 million shares essentially, that works out to be the 19,000 options, that's going to be covered by market makers. So again, you're going to see a nice push higher. Looking forward into this upcoming week, it is a monthly chain, so a little bit higher activity. 18,000 at that 3, 15,000 at the 350, and then 37,000 at that 4. So whatever, like best case scenario, if NIO does really continue to push higher and is able to close above 4, or better yet, even 450, this is where you'll see a nice gamma squeeze rolling over into the following week. So you'd have a lot of different data points and signals, all very bullish, all kind of pointing to around that $5 range, being fairly realistic. But like I said, just kind of watch for a lot of the support and resistance points. And then aside from all of that though, just kind of watch for stimulus talks, because that could also really push things higher. Because going back over here, when NIO did really break higher, I know some people kind of disagree with me on a lot of this, but this initial push higher was when you had a lot of chatter about Chinese stimulus. So that's what kind of pushed NIO higher. And then this secondary push was because of the EU essentially rumored dropping the tariffs to 0. Of course, one thing that killed the momentum was that being quashed, but initially you had this very nice breakout because of stimulus. So again, dependent on the data, you could see a very similar kind of breakout. I see a lot of people still talking about how this is going to be the same setup as this type of scenario, so 2020 to 2021. I would absolutely love for that to occur realistically, and hopefully a lot of you do watch my channel, because I'm not here to pump nor sell or get you to sell. I'm not here to influence you. I'm just reading the data, so it's not all too difficult. But the circumstances that did happen on a larger scale in 2021, completely night and day difference from now. So there was a lot of capital getting in to the broader market, and I just don't see that realistically playing out. If anything, I feel like another scenario to what happened in 2024, that might actually happen, or potentially even earlier in 2023. Regardless, I think the setup is definitely there for a nice push higher. Question is how high? That's anyone's guess. So if NIO was to have a push higher, where do you see things going? Where do you see kind of the peak that always does happen with NIO? So what's your thoughts? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. Have you been buying? Have you been selling? What have you been kind of doing with NIO behind the scenes? And then one final thing, if you are looking for some solid buy signals, pop over to my Patreon. I give buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.